Hello, my name is Tolg and I exist, therefore I think too much. I'm reading Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. Fred, and I read like 2 points at a time because I rant. When I rant, I cuss. If you do not like cussing, you do not have to watch the video. I'm on chapter 2.26. And so far, Nietzsche is sad and hates his peers. The title of the chapter is The Free Spirit. I'm still confused on whether Nietzsche believes in God or freedom at this point. He also believes that psychology sucks, and for 1860 to 1890, yeah, it would. The introduction to psychology was fucking rocky, so he has a point. So point 26. Every select man strives instinctively for a citadel and a privacy, where he is free from the crowd, the many, the majority, where he may forget men who are the rule as their exception, exclusive only of the case in which he is pushed straight to such men by a still stronger instinct as a discerner in the great and exceptional sense. You know, I don't know if it's scientifically proven, or if philosophy is a pseudoscience, or a science at all. But there have been many philosophers who said if a human exists and understands that their privacy has been taken away from them, it is very likely that they will lose their mind. That the animal that is human has a necessity for privacy as much as a necessity for community. Unless indicating men who are the rule, because that's in quotation marks, as those who set the standard for society, and therein, while man wants freedom, human, makes exception for those who set the standard. They don't mind being told what to do or following the leader if the leader is known to lead. And that is instinctual. It is, in that humanity is a group animal. Is that what it's called? Or an animal that suffers group mentality. There have been a lot of studies done where people do not move unless someone else makes the first move. Or likewise, if enough people are doing the same thing, even if you understand logically it doesn't make sense, you follow suit. Like, one that I recently saw was in a doctor's office. All but one was staged, people waiting to see the doctor. And every time they heard a beep, I think it was, everyone would stand up for like 5 seconds or something and then sit back down. And do that every time it beeped, which was a set amount of time. I don't remember, but repeatedly. At which point the one person that was not staged, but was expecting to see the doctor, actually followed suit eventually. And then everyone after that was not staged themselves, but came in to see this woman doing it and eventually started following suit. She taught the next group of people to do exactly as she did, and she did not know why she was doing it. People that set the standard are followed. At that rate, is it really discernment? Because you're obviously not thinking for yourself. If everybody jumps off a cliff, are you going to do it? It was fashionable recently, amongst Gen Z to say, fuck yeah, I'ma follow my friends, I'm loyal as fuck. Okay, I guess, like, if that's what makes your life feel enriched, then jump off that cliff. I just think there need to be enough people to fucking question what the hell is going on. Not enough people do. Go follows further from that, and it says, whoever in intercourse with men does not occasionally glisten in all the green and grey colours of distress. Wow. He's very romantic, I said that last time. Owing to disgust, satiety, sympathy, gloominess, and solitariness, is assuredly not a man of elevated tastes. Ah, okay. That's egotistical. Supposing, however, that he does not voluntarily take all this burden and disgust upon himself, that he persistently avoids it and remains, as I said, quietly and proudly hidden in his citadel, one thing is then certain: he was not made, he was not predestined for knowledge. Very bitter. I see nothing fucking wrong with burying your head in the sand. If you can't fucking handle what the fuck is going on, that's survival mechanism. I'm not gonna fault someone how they survive. Life is subjective per the individual, and it's for the individual to decide how they're gonna get through it. And I think every person lives up to a set role. Whether that be set before they're born or just by condition and how they choose to live, I'm not sure. But I do think there are warriors in society and healers and artists and knowledge pursuers, I don't know, philosophers, scholastic type. There's got to be a better word for that. But I think that you can definitely categorize people, and there are roles that people would feel satiated, fulfilled in pursuing, and likewise, if they did not pursue that role, they feel robbed of life's purpose. And in all of this, there is still something of those that need rest. And in the poet in me, in the romantic side of me, I do think that, there comes a time in which the warrior needs to understand they need to be an artist, and the artist needs to understand how to be a warrior. While you may feel fulfilled in one respect, the need for you may be in another entirely. So if a human pursues knowledge, finds knowledge to a great extent, understands a hell of a lot, feels overwhelmed, and then shuts himself in, or themselves, I find no fault in that. I don't think the individual should be faulted for it. They are hurting nobody. They stepped on no toes. Let them be shut up in their citadel. If they're not going to help anything, they're certainly not hurting anything by choosing not to participate. Although I guess this was just not made, not predestined for knowledge. They can still pursue knowledge. A moment of rest is a fucking moment of rest. Everybody needs... You overwork yourself, you get overstimulated. You do just as much harm as if you were to do nothing at all. Do something when you need to do something, rest when you need to rest. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Too much work can be bad. Too much rest can be bad. It's just discernment. What you need when you need it. For as such, he would one day have to say to himself, "The devil take my good taste." Oh, so that's why the devil is seen as having good taste? Just everybody that decided not to know anything decided to give their good taste over to the devil? But, quote, "the rule," unquote, "is more interesting than the exception. Than myself, the exception." And he would go down, and above all, he would go inside. I don't know where the hell he is in his head. That is imagery I cannot understand. The long and serious study of the average man, and consequently much disguised self-overcoming familiarity and bad intercourse. All intercourse is bad intercourse except with one's equals. What a bitch. What a fucking cunt. How? Jesus Christ. You exist in a fucking vacuum. I'm sorry. I should find the words to represent exactly my stance on that before just cussing someone out. I think it isn't so much that a broken clock is right at least once a day, but I think that everyone has a type of knowledge. Exceptions to rules, sure. You know, I'm sure there exist some people that don't have any knowledge at all, and God bless them. They've gotta feel great. But that's gotta be fucking rare. I thoroughly and absolutely believe that each individual has pursued knowledge in something that helps them stay alive. And therein, I think there is something to learn from anybody, so long as you are able to listen long enough, or be patient enough, or give grace enough, or give understanding enough. It's if you want to learn something, or if you're looking to shit on someone. It has everything to do with the person receiving than it does the person giving. And I think the viewpoint of you should stay with your peers is what has aided in society being so largely segregated and humanity being stuck in this performative version of tribalism. It's devolving, where evolution would understand that we are like one fucking species and doing our damnedest to survive on a fucking rock where people pay taxes to an imaginary system, which is fucking bullshit. The least we could fucking do is work together as a community instead of trying to figure out who has the straightest hair and who does better by having what color irises. I think it's all bullshit. And I think we can do better than this, and we're stunting our own growth by believing that there's nothing to be had outside of those that make us feel comfortable. That constitutes a necessary part of the life history of every philosopher, perhaps the most disagreeable, odious, and disappointing part. If he is fortunate, however, as a favorite child of knowledge should be, he will meet with suitable auxiliaries, who will shorten and lighten his task. I mean so-called cynics. Those who simply recognize the animal, the commonplace, and the rule in themselves, and at the same time have so much spirituality and ticklishness as to make them talk of themselves and their like before witnesses. Sometimes they wallow even in books, as on their own dunghill. Cynicism is the only form in which base souls approach what is called honesty. Fuck. What a sordid fucking life. Holy hell. I am not, someone who believes that humanity can reach perfection. I don't think that it is safe to hold ideals in perfection. I think perfection ought to be held as a goal, sure, but I think that's on an individual basis. I don't think it's realistic as someone third party to another individual to hold that other individual to a goal of perfection. I think that's not only unrealistic, but probably abusive. Having said that, in defense of what I'm about to say, or description, I'm not sure, I think that lying is perfectly fine given the certain situation. I've said it before in a video, but I'd rather be lied to if it's going to protect me than told the truth to fuck me up and fuck others up. I think there are certain situations that call for lying. And the type of lying that I thoroughly fucking hate is pathological, where it's lying just to lie, which I think society has gotten far too comfortable in doing and pursuing. I see no reason to it. I think it fucks life up entirely. When I think like a decent fucking way to live is tell the truth unless it's absolutely fucking necessary to not do so. And that's going to be subjective per the situation, and everybody has different fucking goals in life, but that's, you know, beyond good and evil. What is good is what is necessary, what is evil is what is unnecessary. And likewise, you know, lie when it's necessary. And when it's unnecessary, you're participating in what is fucking evil. And, you know, cynicism should not be what makes you honest. Sure, cynicism can be felt as a part of the huge picture that makes up life. But I think every emotion should just be a moment. It shouldn't be held as an overarching emphasis to what the life is or the quality of life. If the entire life is cynicism, if the entire life is depression, if the entire life is this gray fog of emotions, you're missing out on the whole fucking picture. Grayscale can only make so much art. I still think even in that, you know, you need different particles of light to create definition. Cynicism should not be the only thing that makes you honest. And if it is, I doubt your ability to appreciate life. Although, I guess in this, you know, I'm ready to attack. He says base souls. So, those who are incapable of evolutionary traits, those who are fine with devolving. And therein, I'm confused. He says it's delightful to run into people who are devolved to keep you straight. Or to define who you are. And evolution is lying? Certainly, it denotes a particular level of intelligence to lie. Having been around a few narcissists now, however, the only way to lie and keep that lie going is if you convince yourself of the lie, which deconstructs your knowledge of how things exist as they exist. You do that enough times, you have a tendency to really screw up your memory and thereafter your intelligence. So yeah, it takes a certain level of intelligence to be able to pull off a lie, however it can destroy itself. Double-edged sword. Can negate that absolute level of intelligence by lying. I think you'd have to find it in order to prove me right or wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a study that, you know, you lie enough times it can aid in Alzheimer's, memory issues long term. Could just be my takeaway, I don't know, but worth looking into. And the higher man must open his ears to all the coarser or finer cynicism, and congratulate himself when the clown becomes shameless right before him, or the scientific satire speaks out. Ugh. Clown is born from jester, and this is one of my favorite historical facts. The court jester in European courts oftentimes again, maybe there's an exception to the rule, but it was a rule that the court jester was the person closest to the king, the only person that was given the ability to speak out against the king or give an opinion, also because it was a position that wasn't necessarily sought after. It wasn't a great position to have. The court jester was able to sit in on all audiences, everything, which is why the king trusted the court jester to give the opinion, or was allowed to speak out. As well, the court jester in acts of war was utilized as a tool against the other side in a war. Buffoonery, to act as though they were going to take the first or make the first move, then pull back, forcing the other side in a war to actually take the first move, which would, in a game of chess, put you at a disadvantage. The court jester was a significant role. There, however, is a difference between a jester and a clown. Their European culture is weirdly barbaric, where the royals are concerned. There was a notion, and I'm not sure when it came about, of quote-unquote freaks that were kept in the court. So people that were too short, people that were too stout, people that had misaligned spines, just physical deformations, something that was abnormal, were kept and paid for, so that courtesans or other nobles could make comparisons and be entertained by this quote-unquote freak. The people that were too short or stout often had their paintings done with a lady that would pay, an artist for a rendering of them sitting next to this quote-unquote freak, so that they could hang it up or give it to lovers, attempted lovers, to say, look at the contrast. This sets off how I look, so in contrast, I look better. And the circus was born from these said freaks. Societally, it was people that could not fit in. Clowns were often, sometimes very much like gangs, if not entirely like gangs. People that had criminal records couldn't survive elsewhere, so a clown is not a jester. However, because of him being in 1840 and concerning himself with high society, I would have readily understood that he meant court jester rather than clown. But he is in, I think, the US. I don't know where the fuck he is. So I can't tell what he actually means by this, but I just generally never like the disrespect for people that have been forced into roles. What the fuck book is it? Utopia. Utopia by Thomas More. The famous quote that says, God, I'm so bad at quoting things, but what does it make of you to force people into, these roles, to create a beggar, to create a thief, due to the lack of support provided by these laws and these courts and this society, and then to turn around and criminalize that act once you have made them what they are. I think it's probably classist is the word I'm looking for, where you elevate yourself and then sneer at everybody else after having elevated yourself, probably pulling the ladder up behind you. There are even cases where enchantment mixes with the disgust, namely whereby a freak of nature, genius, is bound to some such indiscreet billy goat and ape, as in the case of the Abigailiani, the profoundest, acutest, and perhaps also filthiest man of his century. He was far profounder than Voltaire, and consequently also a good deal more silent. I don't think you're painting the other person when you have this incredible list of insults. I don't think you're painting the other person as you intend to paint them. You sound like an asshole. You sound like a deplorable being that would be fucking difficult to sit in a room with. You probably suck up all the air and then shit it out and force people to smell it. Like, you're awful. And what you produce is probably awful as well. You could do better by representing yourself and representing others by simply just finding what is worth understanding rather than shitting on what is not worth understanding. While you laugh at cynics, you are one. It happens more frequently, as has been hinted, that a scientific head is placed on an ape's body. A fine, exceptional understanding in a base soul on occurrence by no means rare, especially among doctors and moral physiologists. Was he around for that experiment? When did that experiment take place where the person took some type of monkey? I want to say it was a chimpanzee. Decapitated the chimpanzee and then put that decapitated head on another chimp's body. And it lived for like a few days after that. I'm wondering if he is so visual with what he's saying because that was prominent to him. However, I have stated of my own accord that U.S. medical industry, being backed so incredibly by pharmaceutical industry, has lost the honor in the profession. A lot of it is, I paid this much money into my degree, I earned the respect therein, this many years, and even if I overdosed you on opiates, I'm still worth the amount that I'm paid, instead of actually looking into what is wrong with you. And it's not always the fault of the person in the medical industry, as they are overworked due to, general lack of people in the same industry. However, would people continue to come back if the problem was solved? Are you overworked because of the fucking wheel you continue to run on? The pattern that you continue to participate in? And whenever anyone speaks without bitterness, or rather quite innocently, of man as a belly with two requirements, I don't know this turn of phrase, and a head with one, whenever anyone sees, seeks, and wants to see only hunger, sexual instinct, and vanity as the real and only motives of human actions, in short, when anyone speaks badly and not even ill of man, then ought the lover of knowledge to hearken attentively and diligently. Certainly those are not the only things, but they are the base things. They are... I want to say subconscious, but I think almost just deeper than subconscious, genetically coded into everybody's person to procreate so that the species survives, to eat, to continue surviving. Survival is coded into the human experience. And vanity is born from that survival instinct as well, where when we were a hunter-gatherer society, everything was visually based. Leprosy, if you saw an ailment on the skin, it was generally understood not to fuck with it because contagion. Didn't know to what extent due to a lack of sciences at the time, so just generally stay away from it if there's a visual deformation, so to speak. That's where vanity arises from. But again, now that our sciences and our technology has evolved into being able to understand what the fuck these physical attributes actually mean, or even solve them, I think we can solve leprosy. I don't know. That survival mechanism has gone forth into uselessness, which then turned into vanity. And then that's, survival based on need for resources. When I said the other day, I don't mind people using the cards they have. Survivalism based on what you understand the resources you need in life are. Can you pay the taxes for what it is you're using tool-wise? And so that's the resources you're pursuing. What resources do you highly value? Is it everybody's love? Is it everybody's money? Is it community? Is it society instead? What do you actually value? What are the resources you're pursuing? And therein, the tool you're using, is it going to get you what you actually want? And can you afford using it? That's why I say I don't mind people using their cards, vanity included. Could just be someone's card. I wouldn't go into an industry where it begs of me to use muscles I don't have. That's someone else's card. It's not a card in my deck. Likewise, I'm not going to go apply to be a rocket scientist because that's not a card I have in my deck. That's a card someone else has in their deck, and I don't fault them for using it. Ta-da! But simultaneously, again, over and over again, utilizing these tools, is it something that you can afford in the end? And are you using the whole deck, or are you relying on one card? So the person who's actually knowledgeable needs to listen on everyone talking, especially when there is lack of indignation and people feel free to talk. Why? Not really sure. For the indignant man, and he who perpetually tears and lacerates himself with his own teeth, or in place of himself the world, God, or society, may indeed, morally speaking, stand higher than the laughing and self-satisfied satyr. But in every other sense, he is the more ordinary, more indifferent, and less instructive case. And no one is such a liar as the indignant man. Maybe I'm rose-tinted glasses here, and that's jaded glasses, but maybe it's just that it's easier to learn from people that don't feel faulted societally, and are comforted in saying what it is they feel like saying. That's another way of saying exactly what the fuck he said, except it's not as diminutive in nature. Okay. Sorry I rant so much. Although that's the point of this, so no, I'm not. Okay, 27.27. It is difficult to be understood, especially when one thinks and lives Ganga Stradagati. Really bad pronunciation. Like the river Ganges. And then it says presto? I wonder if that was lost over time, people using that. Okay, difficult to be understood, especially when one thinks and lives like the river Ganges. Is that the river that flows backwards? Among those only who think and live otherwise, namely Kurmagati, like the tortoise, lento. Are these things common knowledge for 1860 and 1890? Like the tortoise, you need a hard shell on your back to protect you, and you hide from danger and die if you're left on your back too long? Am I overthinking this? Or at best frog-like, Mendicagati, like the frog staccato, I do everything to be difficultly understood myself. And one should be heartily grateful for the goodwill to some refinement of interpretation. So it is goodwill to be interpreted. So he is lonely, and he does understand that out of love other people attempt to understand. Does that mean that he's then admitting that his lack of understanding people, due to his want to be only among peers, is because he does not have love for anyone but his peers, who then he turns around and hates because they are not doing enough? And they are not honest? As regards the quote-unquote good friends, however, who are always too easygoing and think that as friends they have a right to ease, one does well, at the very first, to grant them a playground and romping place for misunderstanding. One can thus laugh still, or get rid of them altogether, these good friends, and laugh then also. Allow your friends to fuck up, because otherwise you won't know who they are. Let your friends feel at ease around you to such an extent that they show their ass. And hopefully when they show their ass, it's something you want to keep in your life, or something you understand then to get rid of. And either way, take joy in that understanding. That's something I can stand by. How many people screwed him over to get to the understanding that that's how he ought to live? Sorry, I heard a noise and I was trying to pay attention to what that noise might be. Okay. I'm going to end it there. I hope that you have a good night and eat well and drink well and sleep well and take care of yourself. Bye.